Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tweet Trends. I am so excited because today I have a beautiful young lady with me that I'm going to be introducing to you. She has an awesome story, and I cannot wait for her to share it. So, her name is Anastasiya Rutus, and she is from Ukraine. And she is in the line of business of rest coach and travel strategist. And I'm really interested to hear about the rest coach because I probably need one. I'm not going to lie. So I'm not going to talk any longer. I'm going to hand it over to you, Anastasiya. Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, Yvette. Hi, everyone. This is Anastasiya speaking, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to speak with you because I feel like we all need rest because we all deserve rest and we all think that we need to be earning rest, while rest doesn't need to be earned. It's a necessity. It's also a very, very good thing. And people, I don't know, the society just makes it, oh my God, you have to earn, like work really hard before you get to a point where you can be taking a break, or like you have to actually get an excuse to go to lunch if you're working 9 to 5, right? You have to shift in and shift out sometimes. So we are conditioned to think about rest differently, about taking breaks, about needing to allow our bodies to relax and not be on all the time. So I think not only you, Yvette, all of us, including myself, because that's how I started, we all need rest. And we all need to allow ourselves that feeling to be the priority.
Well, full transparency, I'm a napper. So just
no way.
I nap.
Are you gonna nap? Are you gonna nap out during this recording?
Oh no, there's no way.
Okay. Well, then we're good. I have been so excited to speak with you because when we connected and you asked me what is your story, I was like, you know what? My story expands continents and it expands decades. And you wanted a one-liner. You were like, put it here in this survey. I was like, are you expecting me? Like, really, people do that? Like, can someone really tie anyone's story into one line of text? And so I really appreciated us talking and just chatting about it because you mentioned it. I'm from Ukraine. I'm Ukrainian, and I live in San Francisco, California. I lived here for almost 8 years this fall. I moved in 2014 to follow my heart. I got married to an American. And it was funny because a few years before that, I was like, well, I would never marry a guy to move to a different country because that's just lame. And then I meet this guy and he's like, well, I'm from San Francisco and yes, I'm in Ukraine. And would you be potentially maybe interested in, exploring that? And I was like, oh, okay, San Francisco doesn't sound too bad. So yes, I would be interested in exploring it. But I kind of didn't go for any, oh, maybe you'll get a job offer or maybe this or maybe that. So I just moved with the flow, and it's been magical because San Francisco, if you've never been, it's a gorgeous place. And I'm personally a water person. Like, I love ocean, and I love ocean to be accessible in a way that I can walk to the ocean. Like right now, you cannot see my windows, but I can see the ocean from my windows. And it takes me 10 to 15 minutes to walk to the ocean beach and just enjoy the waves, enjoy the power, enjoy the magic of the movement of this such an incredible force. But when I moved, one of the things that was really hard for me, aside just kind of shifting my whole life completely and moving continents and leaving everything and packing it into one suit, that's a different suitcase. That's a different story altogether. But I moved at a time where it might shock some of people who are listening, but the war in Ukraine, which is still going on, it's actually 100th day. Today it's 100 days of war in my home country. It actually started not in February of 2022. It started in 2014. It started actually at the late 2013 when Ukrainians decided to say that they are against a certain choice that our politicians were making. And in Ukraine, kind of like in the US, you have the right to say, because it's a democratic country and you can just stand up and you have a demonstration. It's usually expected to be peaceful. Like you show up, you protest, you say let's do something. People ignore you and everyone moves on, right? Like it was just the way of life for our younger country. We had by that time around 25 years ish of kind of independence, of recent independence from the USSR. But what happened then, what happened in January of 2014 is that our neighbor, our wonderful neighbor, Putin, who was still at like, how many presidents have we had in the last 8 years? Enough, right? Putin had been in power over 25 years. So he has been in power then. The president in Ukraine, while elected by the people, was still kind of a puppet and a follower of Putin. So he was looking towards Putin for guidance and for things. How Putin deals with public uprising, he usually squashes it down and people are scared, so they don't do that. So he just was like, oh, you have this thing. Well, that's just what you do with this, right? You just come up with a few military, I don't know, police guys, they show up the stakes and everyone runs away because that's how Russians act in Russia, because that's what they're used to. They're used to be scared. Wow. They're used to being like, well, there's nothing I can do type thing. And so they would rather kind of, like right now there are footages of, you know, a crowd running away and then there's just one guy out, like after them with one stick. I'm like, really? This is what you're running from? We're like stopping tanks with our hands. And so what happened in January of 2014 and then in February when the actual war started is that Putin saw that we didn't back down, because for us, killing and shooting at innocent people and taking innocent lives is not okay. For us, for Ukrainians, it has always been like, we would be chill and not touching anyone when it's like just whatever, you know, someone stealing, there's corruption, sure, there's this, there's that. But when it's like in your face, when we just wanted to protest, you know,
right.
It got bloody. And so over the weekend, 500,000 people rose up. We have a decently big country. Ukraine might seem small. It is 80% of Texas. Like Texas is big. Ukraine is the biggest European country by territory. We might not be the biggest by the population. We have around 42 million-ish right now. But like 500,000 is a huge number. It's a big number to show up and tell that, hey, this is not okay, right? So we started then, but it was kind of then like a wake-up call for the nation. Because what you're seeing right now, our army being so powerful in holding on and kind of pushing back at this point, thank God, it didn't exist 8 years ago. We didn't have an army. It was a very lame excuse of an army that everyone hated and no one wanted to get into. But the war started then, because then Putin started being like, oh, let me go take pieces. So that's when he occupied Crimea, and then he started occupying the eastern parts of Ukraine that were under his control in a way for 8 years. So the war didn't start this year. The active phase of war started in February, yes. And it was super, super hard and tough on me personally, because while I'm living here with my husband and my 3-year-old, I have a ton of family. I grew up in Ukraine. I have a ton of friends. I grew up all over the country. Like I've been to all the beautiful places, maybe not all of them, but to many of them, and to know the different parts of Ukraine. When it all started, I didn't really know, like I didn't have words. I didn't have anything to say. I was in complete shock. And in a way, that's how I got to where I am right now, the happy green colored person I am, which sounds ridiculous, because how can I be happy when there is war going on, right? How can I be smiling when there is war going on? How can I be raising a child when there are shootings? Yes, there is place for everything. And unfortunately, it's the reality we're in, but we also have a choice.
Right.
And so I can take you from there. But I know you have some questions.
So I'm sitting here in awe listening to your story. It's like, oh my gosh. So I feel like my mind just blew up when you said how far back this situation has gone. But So that makes me feel some type of way about the news system here in the United States, because although it was a while ago, I can't say that I recall hearing them say anything about anything happening over there like that, to then know that now February wasn't the start. It was just ramped up until it got there. Is it difficult for you to watch the news here?
So that's one of kind of my self-care tools, is that I don't watch the news here, because for two reasons. First of all, knowing the language back in Ukraine, I actually watch the news from the land, like from the source directly. Right. So I would listen to the President Zelensky's newscasts, and his Telegram chat is actually super good because they do translations, they do the subtitles. So anyone interested can find like his official channel and get the news, because I get you that it's like the news here, you know, yes, you can get Fox versus CNN, right? And you can get some kind of differentiation, but it's still, you know, we gave, so my parents have been here when the war broke out in February. They were visiting me and my family. They obviously are still staying here. It's right. June. We've been blessed with help around, and we've been to a couple of places, and we actually gave a couple of interviews where my parents shared their story. And one of the interviewers, he actually asked me, like, what's the difference, you know, between the news that you hear and the news that we see in the US? And I was like, well, and it was at the time, it was still March. So it was kind of still unclear who's going where and can we win. And it was obviously we're in better shape than the first few days. Mm-hmm. But it was still mind-blowingly scary and horrible and super, super active, right? And every morning I started with like checking in on my friends, to the point of I might not be sending everyone a text, but I'll be looking, you know, how when you're in WhatsApp or something, you can see when the person was online last. You're right, like, okay, they've been online today. So they are still safe, you know, they still have reception, they still have all the things. And it was one of the times when President Zelensky addressed the US Congress, and there was this whole footage of that, right? And any one of you like viewers and listeners can find it online, like just to see that. So I asked my interviewer, I was like, did you see Zelensky's address? I was like, did you see, and how do you think what you saw that he was showing? Because he was also showing some footages from what is happening in Ukraine realistically versus what the news might be filtering through, right?
Right.
And so he gave a little bit of an analysis, and the way he described it, he's like, the US news agencies are trying to obviously tone it down. They're also not interested in depicting as much the casualties, like the human suffering. They don't want to show. Like they would be okay showing the building destructions, you know, the blowings, the things. But when it comes to showing, killed kids, because that's one of the things we do, we're counting every freaking child that has been killed, that has been maimed by this completely useless show of aggression by a neighbor that wasn't really provoked by us, other than we exist. Like, because we exist, because we have a history, because we actually have way more history than our neighbor. Our neighbor decided that we don't belong, you know, we never belonged. The whole history of Russia, and I'm not going to go into that, but the whole history of Russia has been of suppressing Ukraine. And when people tell me, like, am I, like, I'm white. Yes, I'm white. I'm privileged from that perspective. But have I known suppression? Yes. Like, my language have been suppressed. My thing, like the literature that I've been around have been suppressed. And I've been told that it's like, it's a horrible thing. It shouldn't exist. It's just a fluke of imagination of some crazy person, you know, this and that.
Right.
And so when these people show up, and you told about it, you're like, was it unprovoked? It was unprovoked from our perspective, other than we exist, right? But the world saw that it was ramping up. The world saw when 8 years ago, all of the things that happened, you know what the world did? The world was like, oh my God, we're so concerned. I was like, what? Say what? We get parts of our country annexed. So in 1994, Ukraine deliberately gave away the nuclear weapons. We had nuclear weapons. Being part of the USSR, being one of the biggest parts of the USSR, we had a lot of nuclear power, and we gave it away intentionally because we got what's called the Budapest Memorandum signed by US, UK, and Russia, that our independence and sovereignty will be protected. Look how that is working out.
Wow.
Look how magically this is working out. So I don't want to bash on the US, right? Because we're getting a lot of help now while it's 100 state. But on the first day when the war started, I went, because I'm an American citizen by now. Like I hold dual citizenship. And when Biden showed up in his first conference, I wanted to find a hammer and just knock him on the head, because the way he was talking about it, he's like, well, you know, we're very concerned. Yes, sure. No, this is not a good way to deal with. I was like, what? Like, the US embassies have been screaming at the US nationals living in Ukraine to leave Ukraine since January or since December. They were like almost in caps lock text screaming, like, leave. People can find the text. It was almost to the point, leave because we won't be able to help you. So you have enough intelligence that your embassies are issuing that warning, that they're saying that, hey, it's not the way, like, get out. We would not be able to help you. And at the same time, our president comes out and he's like, well, yeah, we'll see how the sanctions work, maybe in a month or so. I'm like, what months? What are you talking about? We're a tiny country. What, like, compared to Russia, we are tiny. Compared to what Russia claimed they are, right? We are tiny. We would not be able to hold that month. Like, we needed action last month. We needed preemptive action. But everyone was like, well, we can't do preemptive action because what if they don't attack? I'm like, great. So now we're just like, at some point, President Zelensky asked the bigger society, the bigger politicians, he was like, so how many dead Ukrainians would it take for you to take this seriously, for you to really start taking action? Because at least by then we'll have like a measure, you know, you want your goal to be smart, right? You want it measurable. You'd be like, okay, if you need 100,000, then we'll wait until we reach that, for example, right? I'm not trying to be crude, but it's like, when you're telling me, oh, the scare of a chemical attack is not good enough to start being more specific. The scare of this is not good enough. And here I go to rallies, and what I hear from some of the Americans, they're like, well, yeah, I understand that it's bad, but I'm scared of we shouldn't provide weapons because then there will be nuclear war. I'm like, there will be nuclear war if Putin is crazy enough and people around him crazy enough, whether you provide new weapons or not.
Right.
There will also be a different perspective that says US, who claims to be this super global power, is kind of deflated and kind of not really taking a stance of saving the democratic world. How do you think China is looking at us? China is like, interesting. Are they like, China is big and China is watching.
Right, yeah.
And while China is cautious, but China is watching all the time, right? And when US is kind of like, meh, guess what China is noting? That maybe they should like side out with Russia. Okay, they didn't fully yet, but they haven't closed off like the flight space or all the Arab countries. The Arab countries are watching, right? So many things have been happening since last 8 years. So yes, when the war broke out in February, it was the most unimaginable thing in my life personally, because I felt so guilty that at some point, probably a week or so before it happened, I was talking to my friend who lives in DC, and her mom is in Ukraine. She just recently got her out safely, thank God. But she called me, and I'm kind of known for keeping up with the news a little bit more, but I was trying to even kind of, self-care, phase it out, like not listen to as much news, because there has always been talk, and yes, it started ramping up, but it didn't like you could not comprehend that, right? It just doesn't land in your head that someone can just wake up and start a war in a neighboring country out of the blue.
Right.
And she was like, should I get my mama? And with the information that I had, I was like, I don't think so. I think she's fine. When the war broke, I was actually visiting my friend, that same friend. And I felt so guilty that I felt so guilty because a week before she would have been on a plane out to the US or anywhere else. She would not be sitting scared every day. I mean, yes, it was her decision. Of course, I'm not the decision maker in her choice, but for a long time, I was like, if I said something else, if I knew something else, right? If I thought something else, because I saw the same warning signs everyone else did. And obviously I didn't have the intelligence that the politicians have. And I was like, I told her, no, you are fine. And on top of the whole guilt of me being alive, me personally being alive, me being here, my parents being here, I was blessed that my parents were here. But my brother is in Kyiv, my grandma is in Odessa, my friends are spread out across the country, you know, when they bomb certain cities like that I was born in or that I visited. And I'm just sitting here being fine. That feeling, professionals call it survivor's guilt. It's a horrible choice. It's a horrible thing. And what I realized at that time is that I actually carried that survivor's guilt for 8 years. Because when I moved, I didn't move because the war in Ukraine broke out. Like where I was, it was fine. Like the first initial unrest kind of settled down. It moved into the east and south where the territories were being occupied, right? So there was still like, that was going on. But because of how my life was evolving, I moved. And I was there and I didn't like intentionally even name it up until a really, really long time, almost in 2020, when I finally hired the therapist. The therapist I hired because it was COVID and all the things were changing and all the other things. But what I realized is that I was carrying that guilt all these years. I was carrying the thought of like, why me? Why do I deserve to be in such good conditions? Like I'm healthy. I have the, you know, the medical insurance. I have a good job. I have a great husband. Everyone I know is healthy enough and safe, more or less, or as I thought, right? Like I was trying to find ways to support, like going to rallies, going to things, raising some money here and there. But I was never like actively thinking back to why do I deserve this? But I was voicing it like that unintentionally in my head, like, why do I get to travel? Why do I get to experience all these things while my friends had to leave their homes and move to other places? Not because they decided to, but because they were forced to, because their homes were bombed. In 2014, their homes were bombed. Not in 2020, too, in 2014. And the world was like, we're so concerned. I'm like, good for you people that you're concerned. Go be concerned somewhere else, you know, go be concerned about your vacation schedule or something. Like they've been concerned for 8 years. And they've been concerned the first days because they didn't expect us to stand. Like they did not. They did not expect the force that we actually woke up in us 8 years ago. Because for us, for Ukrainians, for like, we have always been the nation of more republic than, we were never well under like a monarch or a something. Like we were always, historically, we've had kind of all the things. And so to me, going through that and realizing that and working through that, that was one of the steps that brought me to where I am right now. Again, back to the kind of more happy, more listening to myself and realizing that this is happening, but it also needs to change for me. Like I need to be there for myself first. You know how they say, it is a cliche, I know it's overused, but they're like, put the mask on yourself first in an airplane. And now they add, take your face mask off before you do that. I was like, oh, people would like, seriously, I just flew this weekend. They were like, put the mask on yourself first, then on your child. And don't forget to take your face mask off. I was like, okay, but it is so important. And we so forget to do that when we have kids, when we have a business, when we have a job, when we have responsibilities to our elders, or we think we have responsibilities to the world, because the world teaches us, especially girls, that girls need to be timid and silent and waiting and just be expecting to help, and be expecting to put their back so someone else can step on that back, and whatever it is. So we kind of slow ourselves down, we tone ourselves down. Like my green hair, I told you just a few minutes before, it's like I allowed myself this for the first time in my 37.5 years. Okay, maybe the first 12 I didn't really care much about it. But like when I was a teenager, I was trying to be this responsible person because I had a younger brother and I had my mom who was looking into me to be this like A student. I was never like pressed into being an A student, but I was also like, I was never punished or anything for like a bad grade.
Right.
But I also had this self-ingrained idea that I need to take care of them. Like I have some kind of debt that in my head I am repaying to them for whatever it is that I'm doing, right? Or for the life that I have, for the things that my parents give me or gave me. It took me a really long time to start to let it go. It hasn't stopped. The work never stops. We never stop evolving, even when we think we do or we don't want to. We're just going in a different direction. Or everything we do, every thought we think, it's a choice. We make a choice to do that, right? I made a choice because I never consciously got a no from my parents because I never asked, can I dye my hair? Like there were things that I asked and they said no, and it made sense to me. And I was like, okay, whatever, but
right.
With my hair, I was like, I cannot even allow myself to think that I would do that. And last week I did. And it felt so like my teenager was finally feeling free. Like I got a nose piercing in December. Like all of this, it's new. It's new. It feels so nice to be able to allow myself the permission to be myself. Because one thing I do want to be is I want to be an example to my child that being yourself, being the way authentically yourself is so important. It is so necessary simply because we need people who are alive. There is a quote I've seen somewhere. They're like, we don't need more doers. We need people who are actually alive inside. So like being passionate about something, whatever it is, like butterflies or great growing butterflies. Like I've read a girl who was interested in poop, she's like, she became like someone has to study poop, right?
Right.
Like she became interested in poop because her dad allowed her to study her poop in the freaking toilet. Like I was told in my childhood that like going after certain professions doesn't really make sense because it's not going to be paid well, right? Or girls don't do that, or this and that, right? And so I had to relearn myself. Like I started a business last year officially. For most of my adulthood, I told myself a story that I am not an entrepreneur because I don't generate ideas, how Elon Musk does. Just like, it just doesn't like float out of my ears as soon as I blink.
Right.
What started happening? They're actually doing that. The ideas are flowing out of me now because I allow them. I started using a idea generation muscle by just it's been a coaching. Years ago, I went to some weird class and she was like, anyone can generate ideas because you're thinking all the time. The question is that we tone everything down, right? We're told that, oh, this is crazy, or someone else will think that this is crazy. So no, I'm not going to tell it anyone. But we generate ideas all the time. You're doing something, you're like, I wish this was different. That's an idea, right? I wish this was like, or you see a gap somewhere. That's an idea. But then we kind of let them go because like, well, I need a stable job. I don't have that like starting fund to go with. How can I do this? How can I do that? And then we shut down that flow. We shut it down. Like kids have ideas. They're like, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but like when kid says something, it usually happens. The world brings it together so that it happens for the kid, because most of the times kids weren't yet told that they cannot just dream up things.
Right.
But they can, and they do all the time, to the point of my kid doesn't like every now and then the daycare or the nanny that we would bring in for some help and support. So when nanny would be kind of on route or in the day off, I'll be like, today the nanny will come. She's like, no nanny. And then nanny texts me and she's like, I'm sick. I'm like, great. Can we wish for something good?
So no nanny then. Yay.
No nanny. Oh, there we go. No nanny. Okay. Next. What else are we get? But when we're suppressing it for ourselves, it stops all the flow, because we're not just suppressing, like we criticize ourselves all the time, right? Do we come to the mirror? I know there is a book that says high-fiving yourself or something by Mel Robbins, right? I'm not promoting it, but it's the idea of like, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Are you starting from, oh my God, you look so sad, you didn't wake up well or whatever, and you start the day off wrong. Right. But if you wake up and you're like, okay, yeah, I didn't sleep well, whatever, I got pushed by my husband, he snores, or like the night guard just sucks and I need to get to my dentist. But like, do I want it to define my whole day? No, right. I don't. So I wake up. Yes, I acknowledge that there is this feeling of meh. I also acknowledge that I get to choose how I want my day to be. Mm-hmm. I get to choose how I want to feel in this day. I get to choose what I'm giving out to this world, because no one needs really anything from me. Yeah, like the free labor, sure. But right. In reality, the world needs me to be alive. So I can share whatever I'm sharing. So I can tell you about Ukraine. So I can tell you about the war. So I can tell you about also how beautifully gorgeous and amazing that country is. And the people are so hospitable, so generous, so nice and inviting. But we don't like to be touched when our territory is touched. Like we'll be waiting right. until the very last moment, but it's just like, fuck with us. Just don't fuck with us. And you'll be fine. Everyone will be fine. Someone compared Ukrainians to a beehive. Like they'll just go around their day, gathering honey, going back, doing things, unless you put your hand inside. Then it's a problem. Then they're like up into every place. And this is what Ukrainians are doing right now. Like we rose from every place. But what I realized, and that's kind of, I know you asked about the travel strategist and the rest. So it's all of the things. To me, travel has always been an explosion of information. Like I love information. I love kind of gathering input and taking it all in and then pulling it out of my head and just being like, have you seen that? Or have you heard of that? And be like, did you know that Alabama beaches are spectacularly like Tulum, Mexico? No, you didn't, probably, unless you've really been there. But they are miraculously besides the food.
Well, my husband's from Alabama, so we've been down there to Gulf Shores.
Okay. And right. So Gulf Shores is incredible, but until I was there, I didn't realize it was there, right? Because like being in California, I don't really look into Alabama as my destination because I have Mexico. Like I have Mexico, why would I go to Alabama?
Why go to Alabama? Exactly.
Right, but I was in New Orleans and I was like, oh, I'm in New Orleans. So how about, like, I usually try to be creative about my time off. If I'm somewhere, I'm like, can I do something with it? If I do this, that was before I started my business. That was before anything. I always loved to travel. Like I was always I still am. I'm super creative about how to extend the time, the limited time that I always had working in corporate. Like for 13 years, I worked in a corporate setting in a 9-to-5-ish job with a limited number of vacation that people ask you about,
Right.
My bosses would be like, oh, you travel so much, but we all have the same time. How do you do that? I'm like, yeah, you're wasting it. You're literally leaving money. People will leave so much money on the table, so much energy on the table. People who work in corporate leave a ton of money. There is like only 25% of like surveyed responders in 2021 used all of their paid time off in 2021. Only 25% of Americans who are paid workers used all of their time off, all of it. You're basically, what that means is that company gives you that time off that you kind of earned, which you shouldn't earn, but you earn, right?
Yeah.
It should just be given to you. And then you're like, I don't really need that money. There you go.
You know, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. When I was teaching, we would have our days that we could take, and I would rather be there than to deal with having a sub come in my class. And so, but it got to a point once where I had a run in with the principal, and I'm like, you know what? I'm out of here on my birthday. I'm out of here on every opportunity I can get. I'm using all my days. But it took me to have a run in with someone to then be frustrated about taking days. And, then I learned my lesson. But you're right. I can imagine that completely, that most people don't take their days.
People don't take their days. They don't know what to do with their days. They are thinking always in the big chunks. They're like, well, I can only travel once and it has to be expensive. Like, because when you say travel, you're thinking international flights. For whatever reason, people living in the US don't think US is a travel destination. We can have a separate whole thing on that, just alone. So you leave money on the table, you leave energy on the table that you are earned. It's already yours. And you're like, it's not even a donation. You give it back to the same horrible, whatever corporation that you're telling everyone else is sucking down your life. And you intentionally do that year to year to year. It just burns off.
Yep.
It just burns off and it buffers. And then there are unexpected pockets of time that you don't take advantage of, because there can be things like paid time off to volunteer. Like companies started doing that. People feel bad about using them. People feel bad about charging them and doing something with them. And then they don't realize it every company is different, obviously, but
right.
Let's say when you volunteer on a weekend, which is already your time off, you usually can still use that paid volunteer time during a different day, so you can take that time off for yourself. But that the time off for volunteering usually doesn't roll over. Like in California, most of the time, my vacation rolls over. If I haven't used it, I never had a problem to not use it. I was always like, can I get more? Is someone selling? Is there a black market? I'll be like on it, but there was never a black market. I'm like, I'll buy whatever vacation time you don't want to get for yourself, because there is a whole world to see.
Right.
And then I love the unlimited vacation time. Who is using unlimited vacation time? No one, because there is no such thing as unlimited vacation.
I was about to say, tell me, where do I find that?
Well, you know how in startup world, they're telling you how you get unlimited PTO, because that's one of the draws. What in reality it ends up being is that everyone is expected to almost leave at their work. That's why they create this magical environment of you bringing your dogs there so you can hang out with them, so you don't leave. So when you are trying to take a vacation, it still looks weird because no one else is doing it. And unless it starts at the top, where managers and executives are like intentionally unplugging, intentionally using, let's say, a month off, or send the whole company. I've seen some companies take like a mental day for the whole company, because if it's not a whole day, then people would still be weirdly working.
Right.
There are like funny jokes, but they're sad jokes about Americans putting their out of office, like, yes, I'm out on surgery, but you are free to text me and I'll respond as soon as I can, like right now. Versus the European would be like, I'm out, it's my summer, let's talk in September,
Right.
And because like I'm camping or whatever it is, then like no, I'm out, don't touch me, And so the shift needs to happen, because we are leaving money on the table. We are giving our hard-earned money back to the places where we need to be getting it. We're not getting great raises with the inflation going the way it is.
Right.
It has to be different. And then when we step into entrepreneurship, for those of your listeners and for yourself, right? When we step into that, we're like, well, now I'm in charge. I cannot take vacation. I just cannot, because like then this whole thing will fall
apart. Yeah, exactly.
And someone gave me a great example. They're like, imagine you're a CEO applying to work. Well, you're a CEO, right? That's your career path. You're like a C-suite executive at some whatever Fortune 500, whatever it is, and you're interviewing for the next position in your next adventure level. And you come to the interview, you blah 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 blah. You're this awesome person, and then you're like, I don't need your PTO package. I don't need your paid time off package. Like, I'll just get, like, you can take a thank you. I'll just work all my weekends and all my nights and all the things. Like, no, but that's what we do as entrepreneurs. When we start, we don't even allow ourselves the basic thing we went away from. And then we're like, why am I so burned out? And I'm like, I don't know. When was the last time you took a break? When was the last time you allowed yourself to take a break? Because it all comes back to, do I deserve rest? Do I think that what I'm creating needs me more as a rested person versus me in a hamster wheel?
Right.
Because like the kids, we can imagine this world, right? But we don't even allow ourselves to imagine the world where it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be 24/7 on and year in and year out, nonstop, until our health gives out, until something else gives out, until our relationships give out, until our kids, like, have you ever asked your kids what they think of you? What, not in a way like, oh, you're my mom, but like from a legacy perspective. Someone commented on one of my articles recently. I was like, what resonated with you? And I was talking about legacy. What are we leaving our children with? What is the example we're setting to our children?
Right.
With our actions? Because while they listen to what we say, they look at what we do, they repeat what we do. And yes, in certain cases, you start seeing kind of an opposite reaction where you're like, I do not want to be like that. But it takes a long time before the child can process that, right?
Right.
Like, it takes a lot of negative information that we condition ourselves with and we condition the kids with before they're like, hey, I don't need that. Like, I don't need to be the abusive person that I'm seeing someone else is to, let's say, my mom, right? I don't need to do that. But it's also like, why is that a norm? Why is that the norm, not the other way? Why are we so scared to prioritize ourselves? Why are we so conditioned by the world to not put ourselves first? Why it has to be really called out by the flight attendants that your mask has to go on first before you can take care of anyone else? Because you won't have any oxygen, you won't have any energy, you won't have any. These days I hear a lot about like, fill your cup. Whatever the thing you want to fill, you want to fill yourself first, like, so you can have the strength to get. My little one, when she doesn't get food, she might be, I'm playing, and then she gets into a tantrum because that's it. Like, the energy is completely out, and all she can do is now scream. And I'm like, can we try something else? Can we eat first? And then you can play a little bit or as much as you want. Because that sets a different cycle. And she's like, I'm 3. You want me to say what? To do what? I'm like, we'll figure it out. Like, it's an experiment. Like, treating every day as an experiment is how I approach days. And that's in a way like, but I had to struggle and get to that myself to realize that I deserve rest. And you know, until I mean, again, I was blessed. I didn't have like, my parents are healthy. I didn't have to take care of them or anyone like super sick before I had a child. So I was always in charge of my own time.
Okay.
I had a child before the pandemic, right before the pandemic. Everyone was like, oh my God, the first years are so magical. You're going to build these connections with the humans that are born at the same time. And like, yeah, so I built it for the first 6 months, then everyone moved away and was so in their bubbles that I was like, so where's those connections? I need people. I love people. And no one's like, that I thought we were building this amazing connection thing. Everyone was like, oh, San Francisco doesn't have space. I need more. I need space. I need land. I need something to be out in my personal bubble, right? And I get it. Every bubble is different. Every person is unique. And that's fine. But it's so isolating, right? We were all so isolated. And some people would be like, well, you have a husband, then you have a child, right? And you're fine. I'm like, it was such a toll on me mentally.
Right.
Because I had a child who just started walking and who started sitting under my door when I'm trying to figure out this whole pandemic life, work from home all the time thing.
Uh-huh.
And she's 9 months. She doesn't understand mommy needs to work. She just hears mommy's voice and she sees the closed door and she can get to that door now easily. And she's just screaming. And it was before the time when people were like, it is live, so let's stop apologizing, you know? Let's stop apologizing for being alive. Let's stop apologizing for having families, for having to do things, for needing to be out in the world and do something else, or for some noise in my background, or for the screen moving slower than I can. I'm like, did you do it intentionally? No. Did you make your child scream intentionally during a meeting? No. Then why are you apologizing, right? Like, but to me, the 2020 was a big mental blow. To me personally, like, I was still figuring out what it is like to be a mom in my first year. There was a lot of mom guilt. There was a lot of control issues. There was a lot of, how can I allow my mother-in-law, who's trying to help me by cooking, how can I allow her to help me and cook for me? Because I would be seen by my mother-in-law, who obviously doesn't think that way. I know that for a fact. She loves cooking. Cooking is her love language. So she would rather be cooking all the time. I'm like, how can I allow my mother-in-law to cook for me? What am I not able to do that myself? What am I not able to do the childbearing and the husband managing and the working and all the things myself? And then I was like, what the fuck am I telling myself? Like, what it's really like, why am I telling that to myself?
Right.
And so all the things that 2020 was, it was really hard on my marriage too, because for us, travel was a huge part of my life, of our life with my husband. And when there was no travel, because 2020 was at least the start, then we started to kind of slowly get back together. Like, we started traveling back in 2020. Again, we were traveling through the pandemic with the kids. We were doing it as safely as we can. And there are ways to do that. And they might or might not work for others, but there are ways. And there's this whole country called the United States that you don't even need an airplane for.
Hop in your car and go.
Outside of, like, well, technically you can even get to Hawaii without the plane. Well, there are cruises going to Hawaii. Cruises. So you can. They ship cars there all the time. So there are ships that go there. So you don't even really need to fly if that's your concern, right? And to Alaska. So there is this whole country that people can get to in their cars without meeting anyone. There's like so much openness and space and exploration available, culture-wise, nature-wise, just changing the narratives, changing the scenery. That we started traveling. But before we did, we were sitting there and I was like, we don't have anything to talk about. Because like we love travel, we travel well together. But like outside of that, he likes one type of books, I like another. We bond by sitting together and reading our own books, you know, on the beach or this and that. But like we don't discuss them because they're different. We're like, do you like your book? Yes, good. Like, we move on. Like, I love going to the movies. I love the blockbusters. He's like, movies is crap, like, because no one makes good movies, so why would I waste time and money on it? And the list goes on. Like, but before the pandemic, it was fine because we had all these things happening. We had other people to talk to, we had other places to go, and there was always a trip that's coming up or that we're looking forward. Like, we would travel at least once a month, if not more, just somewhere, like outside. Like, girl, we travel. By now I've done almost 30 states, living only 8 years in the US. I've been to Antarctica, which is like down south where the penguins are, you know, like super down south.
You went to Antarctica?
Yes, I went to Antarctica as a baby planning mechanism. Well, because there was this whole thing called Zika virus, which might affect the newborns and the pregnant. And I was just sitting there, we're like, we want to travel. We're trying to maybe make a baby. So where would we travel where there is no mosquitoes? Then I was like, oh, look, there is this snow continent thing. And my husband's like, are you insane? Do you know how much it costs? I'm like, how bad could it be? Then I looked at the numbers. I was like, oh, okay. It is. I mean, it is a big number. I'm not saying it's a cheap trip.
Right.
But with enough flexibility and creativity, it can be made much cheaper than the initial ticket price you see. And it can be much more much more comfortable than you think it is. And that allowed us to do like Chile, Antarctica, Argentina exploration trip.
Okay.
And yes, I was lucky with a good flexible boss and all the things. And we spent 3 weeks doing all of that. And I saw amazing dolphins. I saw whales. I saw glaciers. I saw penguins in their habitat. So I know how to travel. I know how to travel. I might not be like renting jets because I don't really care about that.
Not necessary
right now, most of the time. Though when people started taking their masks off right now in the planes, I'm like, really? That is still icky to me. Like I've been traveling. I'm not the most, I need to wear the mask the whole day person. My baby wears the mask longer than I do. In daycare, they do it all day nonstop. I had to spend 13 hours on a flight to Istanbul this fall. And I was like, oh, this is hard. I was like, how are they doing it again? But like, there are principles, there is like risk management principles that actually from my day job, like I bring into my plans. I bring into how I look at world and how I think about how can I make it safe. And so 2020, it was insanity because we had to just stop, right? All of us had to stop and reevaluate everything. That's when I started thinking, I was like, I am not enjoying my corporate job. Like now that I realize that I can do it from home all the time, and now that people even extended the hours of how much they can pull on me to be in the meetings, and being on the West Coast, East Coast always love a 7 a.m. meeting or a 6 a.m. meeting, but they don't like a 3 p.m. meeting, East Pacific. I don't know why. At 4, don't even start me on that. I'm like, no, you don't want to do dinner. Somehow you want me to be alive at 6 a.m. I don't see you being alive at 6 a.m.
Right.
But no one cares, right? No one cares about me. No one cares about you.
Right.
No one cares about anything but themselves.
Yes.
But somehow when we start thinking about it, we're like, what would others think? They in reality, no one cares. No one cares unless it personally touches someone else, right?
Yes.
So whatever you do with yourself, however you show up, unless they're personally feeling like it affects them, then they would have maybe something to say. Like in San Francisco, there is a district, it's called Castro. It's known for LGBTQ, plus community being there as like the main kind of population, like to the point of you would see funny titles on like donut shops and coffee shops and all the things. And there's a couple of guys who like walking around naked with just a really sparkly thing on their peepees. I mean, do they really care what I can say about that? I don't think so.
No.
I've seen them multiple times and I don't show up there often.
Right.
But like, they just want to do that. I'm like, they're not forcing it on me. They're not coming to me and being like, hey, Anastasiya, you need to do that. No, when I do that, people are like, oh, your nipples are sticking out because you're not wearing a bra. And I'm like, you've never seen nipples? Like when I first moved to the US, I literally had a guy almost stalk me in Safeway, East Coast, but Safeway. He was walking around after me and meeting me in each alley and being like, oh, hi, your tan is so pretty. I came home to my friend. I was like, so there was this weird guy, like literally weird. Like, why? She's like looking and she's like, oh, your nipple, like you're not wearing a bra, your nipples are sick. I'm like, what? Say what again? So like, I get office, okay, I get office. But I cannot go outside without wearing a bra because someone else will feel uncomfortably drawn to my nipples.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what the fuck is wrong with this magical country of land of opportunities that I've been sold this story that I've been thinking, oh, maybe I need to move here. And
lies and propaganda. Here. That's what it was.
I was like, oh, my husband's like, oh, right. The US is very pure, like very, 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 very that. I was, to the point, oh my God. So a few years ago, we were in Idaho. That was actually 2020. So in Idaho, completely secluded beach, somewhere in the bushes. I was like, I'm still breastfeeding. I have a small child, you know. I decided to do a few minutes of topless sunbathing because, I mean, no one's there. Apparently, it was some kind of community grounds. Someone saw me walking to the water and back. They reported me to some kind of security guard on the premise who stopped by. He was very uncomfortable, but he was telling me how it's not appropriate and I would be denied service. I'm like, does he think I'll go into the shop not wearing anything on me, like with my boobs out? But like, that's one of the things I want to start is like a no bra movement. Like, if you need a bra, if you enjoy the bra, great. But why do I have to wear a bra so someone else would feel comfortable about it, right? And so it all comes down to like, what do I deserve? What do I feel best? Like coming out of the pandemic and going back to the office, you know, when people are like, it was so hard to find pants. I'm like, it was so hard to find a bra. For 2 years, I was not told or needed to wear a bra. Mm-hmm. One time I had to go for a team lunch. I was like, fuck, do I have a bra? I don't have a bra. I need to find one. Like the whole premise of like people telling me what I should or shouldn't do with my body is just baffles me, you know?
Well, but it's the same thing that we have though with our hair, where for the longest, it was almost like it was offensive to people if we wore our hair in braids or locks or anything other than having it pressed or relaxed so that it was straight. And it's like,
and even then it has to be like tied up. So because loose hair, it's already kind of like more sensual or whatever it is that it brings up in people, you know? And all of this is like, why? Mm-hmm. It's so hard. It's so hard to be in this world when you care. Like, I get it that there is society, there is rules, there are certain things we like. Killing each other is probably, I totally am on board, right? With like, let's not kill each other, but also let's not be in my panties. Mm-hmm. Let's not be in my panties. Let's not be in my home telling me what I can or cannot do with myself. Right. Yes, you can tell me that I probably shouldn't abuse my children, right? Or you can have a say in certain things about particular topics, but how I look, like, am I making you look like that? No. Am I trying to make you do certain things? No. People would be like, you're too bright. Your nails are too shiny. Yes, my nails are too shiny. My nails are colorful because I like that. I travel too much. It's a thing, you know. I don't think that way. I'm like, oh, I need to do more. I've only visited 26 countries or 28 countries or 20, whatever. I think I'm on 30, but like I've only visited 5 continents out of 6. I still have Australia to cover. Like, we always find what's wrong with us because of how we perceive the world sees us, or how we compare each other, how we compare ourselves to someone else's image of, oh, someone else traveled 100 countries and I only did 30. I did 30 countries, and then I did 28 freaking states, which is technically a separate country each, right? So it's like it's a huge chunk of life that we discount because we just devalue ourselves. And it starts with that, like all of the I deserve rest thing that I want people to get, and this is what my rest coaching is about, is helping mothers specifically, because that's just where I am right now in my life. And also because before the baby, I was in charge of my time. So I didn't need that as much. I think I need to relearn it for myself. And the war in Ukraine actually brought me back to the point of taking a break is a good thing. I do not even for the first month, I probably watched like so much Instagram news things, trying to make sure that like I know every little detail sitting here. I haven't watched it probably in a year. Like, I was trying to kind of stay off social media, you know. And then one of my friends back in Ukraine, who was literally hiding in the bomb shelter, you know, I was texting, I'm like, how is it going? You know, he's like, it looks so much worse from the outside. Like the way,
Oh,
because
wow.
because we're trying to consume, so like you're trying to find those bits and pieces of information that you're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and you're just nonstop in that space of whatever it is, and the negativity always overrules it in our head. It does. It's just how our psychology is primed to be, right? We're primed to be looking for the fear, for the scary factor, so we can have enough information to start running in time, in a way. And so we're just looking, oh, there's this bad thing, oh, there's that, and of course there's like, of course there's this, and at some point I even asked my therapist, I was like, does it make me a bad person that I don't want to watch news anymore every day? Does it? It doesn't.
It shouldn't,
right?
no.
It doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't make me a bad mother to not want to watch news about every single shooting. Am I aware that they're happening? Yes. It is a horrible reality we live in, right? That kids cannot go to school safely. There was a mean joke that's like, if you have a shooting in Texas, call 911 and say you're having an abortion, the police will show up quicker. Like,
oh wow. But
like I don't know if anyone tested it, but that's how it sounds, right?
Right. That's how they lay it out. They seem like they're for this, but they don't seem to
like
care about that.
Right, exactly. It's like, you don't want to give us breaks to be moms. You don't want to give us health insurance so we can be healthy moms, because how many times does the mom get a check up after a baby born? You get one at 6 weeks to see if you're healing well. Then no one else cares. Nothing. Baby gets a check every month, every week, first, and then it goes on and down. And then the next time you show up at an OBGYN, they're like, you're not yet for your pap smear because it's every 3 years. I'm like, so you don't care what my insides look other than every 3 years, but you care about my flu. For 1,500 times you'll send me an email about my flu shot, like that you care about so much because someone needs that shot. But like me coming in for a regular check-in, that's not something you invite me to. And then an OBGYN just starts making lewd comments about, are you having the next one soon? Are you here for a checkup or a checkout? I'm like, ew, I thought I could trust you, whatever.
Wow.
Like, society has so much to say about everything I do, or how they think I should be, or how they think all of us should be. So like, to me, when I was at the birthday party, my daughter's birthday party this Monday, and all the moms who were having the same age kids, they were pregnant. And I was like, they were pregnant for seconds. And I was like, I'm probably the only one right now who is like not actively even trying to, and I'm like very honest about it. And I'm so tired of every other mom. Like, my good friends don't do that. They know I've ranted enough times about that, but like, there are moms who wish well, but they're like, you should do it soon, this is so, I'm like, or there are moms who were moms for a long time, they're like, so are you planning your next one? I'm like, am I asking you about your period? Am I asking you about your, I don't know, menopause? Let's talk about that. I don't see anyone talking about that with me, right? I don't see you asking me also what books I'm reading. You're asking me only about my reproductive health.
Right.
And then when you think that I've had enough kids, you start asking, don't I know where birth control is? Because like, why do I need 4 kids? Why do I need 5 kids?
Right.
Why do you think I don't? Maybe I want them. Maybe it's just like, I'm just happy that way, right?
Right. Well, I had an experience like that too, where I went to the emergency room because I was pregnant and I started bleeding. And the guy in the emergency room is like, well, why did you wait so long? Like, I was 35. Why did you wait so long to have a baby? And I'm kind of like,
what do you mean?
Wow, I'm here, I'm bleeding. Can you just let me know if I'm okay?
Right.
And
my baby is fine or not.
Right. And everything was good. But when I left there, I was still like reeling from that question. Like, what gives you the right to even question me? Does it matter?
Why do you care? You're not even my provider,
right.
to talk to me about
exactly.
anything, right? It's not like we've been on a long journey and I've been telling you like, hey, you have a low whatever count, then maybe let's start talking about it sooner or something. And then you're like, well, no, this is my choice. Again, this is all comes to choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
People make choices to get their heads up someone else's butt or up someone else's pantyhose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm not asking you when was your last prostate exam. I'm sure it was never, because you're like, I don't need one. I'll be fine until it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
But like, no, that's not a tabletop conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But what a tabletop conversation is like, when are you having the next baby? Or any baby? Or why aren't you having a baby? You've been married for several years. Why aren't you having a baby? Or why aren't you married? Mm-hmm. And all the things. And I kind of deviate. But in 2020, I had to reimagine my brain in a way to like, what do I want? And can I do things differently? Because like I said, for a lot of years, I thought that I cannot be an entrepreneur, mm-hmm. right? And I was put in this situation where like, okay, I have this child and I realized I'm not like a stay-at-home mom in a sense of like, I cannot do my child 24/7. I just, nope. I do daycare full time, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. My teachers sometimes look at me like I'm the worst person on the planet when I come up at 5:55. They're like, your little one is the last one. I'm like, you're paid until 6. Like, don't look at me like that. Like, you're paid for the last minute. If everyone else picks their child earlier, good. I have until 6. So like, I'm not picking up my child from a police station that you dropped her off, you know? Like, don't look at me like that.
Well, and somebody has to be the last one anyway.
Well, you know? But it's like, well, it's when it's 5:30, then it's fine. But like when it's 5:55 and they had this inconvenience of working their job, you know, for another 30 minutes that they're still paid for. But I was blessed that the daycare worked during COVID, you know, that they reopened rather quickly and they were able to take her in back. Because I was like, because there were some parents who kept their child at home for a year. I mean, it's COVID, it's scary. I was like, how did you survive? Like, I don't know how people survive that. I really don't. Like, I mean, you get creative, like with everything else. You experiment, you try it out. But then it becomes harder to let go of the child, right? It becomes harder to be like, well, I'm the only one who can do it. And I'm the only one who can do this and this. But I started being like, kind of creatively thinking about myself and okay, like what it is that people come to me for or what it is that I'm known for. And I am known for my travels, right? So that's how I came like long way to the travel strategist business that I have right now. It's called Emerald Travel Design. And what I do there is I provide an opportunity for anyone who wants to travel but doesn't want to do the planning because it's a lot of work, right? I don't know if you enjoy travel planning, but the amount of hours you spend is enormous. And when you have kids, do you really want to do that unless you really enjoy it? No, you don't. But there is always an option of a travel agent. Yes, but a travel agent will give you something not uniquely you. They will give you, you're like, I want to go to Mexico. They're like, okay, I have this hotels, right? And then you still have to figure it out.
Right.
And then you come in and you're like, well, okay, this was all prepackaged, so I have to deal with this. What I do is I create this unique experiences in a way where you tell me everything you want. You spend less than, well, usually it's less than 2 hours of your overall time commitment on planning a trip, any trip, girl, any trip under 2 hours. How about that? You tell me what you love. I do all the research. I give it to you. You just click the links and you have the magical trip that's been created with you in mind, not with me in mind, not with my mom in mind. That's why I don't do like, oh, this is where I went. Like I can tell you where I went, right? I went to Antarctica. I went to other places. I also enjoy things in the US. But if you don't care about them, it doesn't matter if I went there or not.
Right,
it just
exactly.
matters that I know how to travel, right? And I know how to camp versus go first class. Like I can go anywhere. But what I realized is that for people like myself who love to have the flexibility and don't want to do the travel agency thing, but they also are not yet or not looking at this time for like private jets and private islands and private villas, because I don't really dabble into that. There is a whole market that's like a top level luxury concierge services. They existed for a long time because people want that or the travel. I'm like, but in between, it's a do-it-yourself. I call it a DUI. Like when I make it into a DUI, but like we end up doing it ourselves because like we don't want to be tied in but we don't see the option. We don't see the option of someone else doing it for us. And so that's where I realized it's like, oh, there is this whole gap in the niche. There is a middle market that's not covered by people who want specialized attention, and they don't want to do the work. And with COVID, the reality of travel changed. You cannot just rely on reviews. You just cannot. People are still like, oh, there is 5 stars. I'm like, when was those 5 stars? 3 years ago? When they were fully staffed and fully open and operating?
Right.
Or is it like actual recent reviews? Have you looked into that? Have you actually called them to see that they're working? Because some places don't even have the time or staff to go and update their websites, not to mention Google Maps, right? Or Yelp thing. Like, they don't have time to update their websites. They don't have staff to work the full shifts. Do you think they would spend time updating their websites? No way. They would not, unless they're big restaurants. And even those people have problems and struggle, right? So my biggest advice right now to everyone is like, when you're doing it yourself, call. Always call, especially when you're traveling with children, because when you're yourself, you can maybe survive on a snack bar, right? But with like a child, you want food. And when you don't plan for that food, or when you don't plan for an activity that's actually alive and open and operating in the way you want it to be, you're going to end up with shit that you spend time and money getting to, that you like invested and psyched your baby to. And then it doesn't happen. Like for me, it was for Christmas, we like to go to like some beach, to a beach. Like, we like beaches. So we were going to go to Jamaica this Christmas. On the day of the flight, I got tested for COVID because I had that I needed that to travel to Jamaica. I had COVID with no symptoms. Do you know how hard it is to explain to a 2.5-year-old, why are we not going on that airplane mommy was talking about for this whole month?
Oh, no.
It was very sad. What did it teach me? It gave me a perspective. Like, I am a positive person. Even before the war, I'm a positive person. And during the war, I also learned to be a positive person. But what did teach me that you're not going to Jamaica for Christmas? I'm glad that I got tested in the US. Because if I left for Jamaica and didn't know that, because there was 2 tests, there's a whole story about that too, but I would have gone, and then I would have needed a test coming back.
Right.
The test would have still shown me being sick, because even after you are officially even 10 days technically out, your body still shows the results, like on the PCR test for up to 3 months. That's why they give you doctors like piece of paper that says you are fine. I wouldn't have known that I'm sick. So I would have to be stuck at that point in Jamaica for 10 more days minimum, mashing everything up, right? All the plans, all the things, all the while to, because what? Because that's just what life is. That's what travel is. But I was glad we didn't have to. Yes, we had some sucky weather in San Francisco for Christmas. That's why we travel out of San Francisco for Christmas, because it sucks. It's cold and wet and blah. We like beach. It's nice there. You get to swim, you know. We didn't get to do that this year. And then we didn't get to do a few more things because they didn't happen. And then my parents came. And then things were kind of starting to look up. And we were planning maybe like a solo, like a couple's trip to Mexico. And then the war broke out. And we're like, you know how people were joking how 2022 is a 2022, like a second edition. So for us, the first 3 months, that's what it felt like. It felt like crap. And then even more crap. And then like the biggest thing dropped on our heads was the war. But after a certain point, I had to stop, right? I had to stop everything. I had to stop working. I had to stop running a business of travel design, of like marketing it, doing anything with it, because I was like, my brain just doesn't, there's no space for anything in my head right now. And all I was focused on is making sure that my parents are alive, that my family is alive, that my friends are alive, and trying to raise as much awareness in like society, in public, and talking to people here on the ground, you know, in the US, to tell them about the war and how bad it is and how bad it has been and why it needs to stop and all the things. But then I also got some clarity for myself, because I was like, well, allowing myself to step back was a good thing, because I was able to slow down. I was able to pause. I was able to start breathing again. Because let me tell you that sitting in a restaurant with a friend that you haven't seen in a while because she's alive, you're alive, we're just visiting, and feeling guilty for having food is horrible. Feeling guilty that you have this wonderful nature behind you is horrible. But what happened that day or the day before was that Putin said, it was the first time during the war when he was like, oh, by the way, and I have a nuclear button. Like, don't you remember that? And I have all these things. And the world was like, oh, there is the threat of the nuclear war again. And you know what I told my friends? And that was kind of my first wake up moment, even in the first week of the war. I told my friends, I was like, if he's that insane, like, there is nothing we can really realistically do about his particular insanity of pressing that button, or whoever he's around, right? If they believe that that's what they needs to be done, nothing we do or say is gonna stop him. Yes, it will raise some more people. Yes, it will do things against that, but it won't stop him if that's just what he wants, right? Like with the shooter, like, can you stop the shooter when he is actively in that point? Unless you like literally shoot him down, right? You can't really stop him unless someone like throws himself at the gun or at the guy or at the person, right? So like, unless there is someone in his environment who will stop him from doing it, nothing I can personally do as Anastasiya, sitting here in San Francisco, sitting in DC at that time, will change that. But I was like, and I was kind of in DC, Maryland, and I saw that they have waterfalls. And I was like, let's go to those waterfalls. Like there's the Great Falls. They're called Great Falls. They're gorgeous. And I've never been there. It's a national park. It's a magical place. I was like, let's go see some nature, because we've been cooped up at home watching news cycles for the last almost 5 days, you know, at that point, or whatever it was. And I'm like, even if tomorrow never comes, because we are not, none of us really know when that last moment is last moment.
Right.
Unless you're blessed with like the supervision, then we really don't. Like all that like long-term planning, it's great if you have an estate plan. Do you have an estate plan, Yvette? Because you need an estate plan, because we don't know. We do not know. And I was like, let's go enjoy this nature. Let's go enjoy those waterfalls, because then at least if there is a nuclear winter, right? If there is a nuclear something, at least we would have that vision of those waterfalls, you know, we would have something good to go to. And that kind of became my coming back point. Like I was still struggling and it took me a long time. But what I realized is that to rebuild Ukraine, I need to be alive.
Right.
I need to be alive inside to tell my child about this magical country, to tell the world about this magical country. I need to have the energy and the passion and the words. But most of all, I would look differently to you if I was like, yes, Yvette, it's very sad, you know, there's this war and I just cannot talk about it. And it's also like I would be like, we can make a choice whether to be sitting in our home or in our heads and blaming in a way ourselves for being alive, because that's just how the circumstances landed us to be, right? Versus we can find a reason to live, because there are people who find reason to live during like super active moments and then they deflate because they don't see a purpose. And I'm like, but you need to find that purpose yourself. I read a book at that time of a Holocaust survivor. Her name is Dr. Eva, I think it's Dr. Eva Eger or Eger. It's Eger. It's called The Choice. She talks about surviving Auschwitz, getting out of Auschwitz as a child, as a teenager, and then half of her life feeling the survivor's guilt.
Oh, wow.
Because she's like, why did I survive? Why didn't my mother survive? Why didn't this? Why didn't that? You know? And how then she kind of talks about, and she became a clinical psychologist. She's actually still alive. She's like 90 something. I've listened to her interview. She's like, you need to start finding the small rhythms for yourself, something small in your routine that will make sense living for, whether it's waking up and smelling the roses, smelling that cup of coffee, just giving yourself 5 minutes of that. Even if you want to dance, there is nothing wrong with wanting to dance while the world is on fire, because someone has to keep standing. Because for us to dismantle the white supremacy, for us to stop, I don't know if it will stop the shootings right away, right? But for us to start changing the narrative, we need to have the energy. We need to have that. We need to be alive. We need to have the strength to stand up and to stand, because it's a long fight ahead of us. It's a long fight to be building what we need our children to have. Like when I was talking about other people having kids, what came to me is like, I don't want to bring another child in this world where it will fall on their shoulders.
Right.
All of this crap that this world is right now, it's not going to go away in 30 years or in 50 years, right?
No.
So me bringing in another child, in a way, it's like I am creating a human to be suffering through all of this, to be living through all of this. And yes, maybe she'll be that magical person who'll be the driver of them all, the Dalai Lama. And yes, I'm leaving the world. I'm like, I will kind of like, I am in a way feeling guilty when I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should go for it. But because the rest of the, club is having babies. I'm like, maybe that's what the society expects of me, to be bringing babies. But then at the same time, bringing a baby in this world is so hard on our bodies, on our mental things. And no one talks about that. Well, yes, they talk, but they don't really talk. They don't really change things, right?
Right.
And so things need to change. And that's when I started realizing, I'm like, I am good at what I do. I am good at like learning all the things about the world, seeing what can be done differently. Like I came to life coaching as one of the ways, because I know I ask really good questions. When my clients come to me, I ask them, like, it kind of works well for my travel design as well, because I need to get into your head.
Right.
To pull it out so that it would kind of be like you are doing it, but you're not really doing it. You're just giving me the information.
Right.
But the same way was life coaching. Like life coaching, there's so many life coaches. There's so many coaches right now. It's a blowing out of proportion thing, but it's okay, because all of us are different. Every person who is a coach is so different. And when they're stepping into their own power, into their own kind of purpose in a way, into their own energy, they come up different and they bring a different angle to you, to me, to the world, right? And how they show up. And what I realized for myself is that when I rest, when I take a break, when I allow myself to take a bath during the middle of the day, or when I go on solo trips myself, my child survives. My child lights up to see me again because she missed me, I missed her. And that's okay. It's good. It's good to miss people. It's good to come back. And you don't need to do that to be fully you, whatever it is. But what you do need, what your child or anyone deserves, is for you to really leave, to you fully embrace yourself and not stomp down on yourself. Because when I ask my clients, like, what would you do if you had all the money in the world? They're like, that. And then I'm like, well, close your eyes and just imagine for a few seconds, right? Like, what would you really do if the money wasn't a problem? Like, you had all the money in the world, what would you do? And usually what I see on faces is that they're like saying, well, I would do this, I would travel, I would this. And then I see this twitch where like they have a thought which has been probably hiding there, but they're not letting it out. They're usually like, no, this is great. Like, why would I allow? And I'm like, tell me that thought that just came to you. And this is when they're like, I would really want to do X. Like, I would want to continue my education in this, or I would really like leave my job and focus, I don't know, on my cooking and make something out of that, or just enjoy it. Like, when we stop criticizing ourselves, when we allow ourselves to daydream, when we allow ourselves to be, we'll like the energy shifts. It really shifts. Like when I did this hair, when I did some things, when I decided right now I'm on sabbatical from my day job. I haven't left yet, but I'm on sabbatical. And I kind of told you a little bit of like energy started shifting for me when I decided to take a break from my work. And in the end, that break will result in me cutting ties.
Right.
But as soon as I made that conscious decision and I said to myself and kind of to the world, I was like, I will be going on sabbatical as of X. I will announce it to my boss on such a date. I kind of made even a countdown out of it, and I put some accountability things in place to keep me going, because it is a scary place to stop working after 13 years of having someone to tell you where to show up and the paycheck that's coming. Like, it is something hard to do. But I started noticing immediate shifts in things coming to me, things that I'm thinking about and wanting for myself, because I'm deciding to enjoy this world, because I'm deciding intentionally to enjoy this life. Like, for example, the biggest, hugest thing that happened, I was on a solo trip to San Diego, doing some kind of me time, also meeting some clients. But my parents, since the war started, or even before, they were living in my 1-bedroom apartment with me and my husband and my baby. It's a lot of people. It's lovely. It's lovely when you have it for a month. Usually when my parents come for an extended period of time, we split it into pieces. So we send them, they love traveling too. So they go for, like, let's say a week, then they come back for a few weeks, then they go again, or we all travel somewhere, so that we have some breaks. And then there was war. And we all were just in this box of insanity and same 1-bedroom. And it's not going anywhere. And now they were supposed to fly back mid-March. They weren't flying back because there was no flights to fly back.
Right.
We were just here all in this space, and we needed to figure it out, because we don't know when it's ending. We do not know. By the time April came, by the time I decided on my sabbatical, I was like, we really need an apartment for my parents. Like, even if it's short term, we need a break. We all need a break from each other. And 1-day break is not going to cut.
No.
There was something showing up. There was this, there was that. But by the time I went to San Diego, it was end of April. Nothing was really happening. Like, I wasn't seeing. So I kind of put it out in the universe. I almost said, universe, you have a to-do list. Help me find an apartment for my parents. You know what happened to that? I was, I think, on the beach. I had a text message by like a Facebook messenger from a person I know who also lives in San Francisco, who's also Ukrainian. We might have met like once or twice when she was pregnant and I was pregnant. We haven't really talked since then, but she remembered me. She texted me. She's like, I was able to get my parents out, and I found them an apartment. There's this person who is who cares about the cause, and she wants to help. She has a few apartments, and she's asking if there is anyone else you might know, because you're like one of the few Ukrainians I know that who has parents in Ukraine, or who has people in Ukraine. So maybe you know anyone who is in San Francisco who might want housing. I was like, pick me. I was like, oh my God, pick me. Even within 24 hours, I had a free apartment for a month for my parents.
A free apartment?
A totally free apartment.
Wow.
That they were able to move in the next day.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, I'll take it. You know what? Let the energy come. Let the dreams come. Allow them to come. Because when you don't, they don't. You know how they say, universe doesn't really understand whatever it is, the energy, God, whatever you call there is something out there. It's always listening. Whatever you say to yourself, it is always listening. If you tell yourself, I am magical, I am awesome, I am wonderful, and you keep doing it, then you will be feeling like that, right? But when you tell yourself, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve this, guess what? You won't be getting that, whatever it is that you don't want to be getting. Or when you say, I don't want, like, I hate this, like, they don't understand the word hate. They're like, if you're focusing on a negative thing that you don't like I don't like a green pen. I don't like a green pen. What the universe hears is like green pen. Let me show you more green pens. And you start seeing, it's called confirmation bias. We just don't understand that it doesn't work with a no. Like when you say no, the universe is like, I don't get that. You can say yes to more red pens, yes to more abundance, yes to more things, versus like, it's all about it. Like, I don't have time, or I'm like, you can say, I am not healthy. Like, sure, that's a very generalistic thing. Like, you can be healthy, right? But when you're focusing on something, no, this, no, none of this, it will probably happen the way you don't want it to happen.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's what you're asking for. You're just saying more of this crap that you're looking at, because you're basically just asking about that versus anything else. And so what can I say? It's a tough world, and it's a tough place if we make it that way.
Right.
But it also doesn't have to be. I'm not saying my approach can cure illnesses, but it can. There are stories of people with like who watch comedies and who kind of uplift themselves. They get through things easier because your body starts to look at like you are focusing more on well-being versus on not being sick. Like when you're saying I don't want to be sick, you're saying sick, versus I'm saying my well-being is important. Like this is important. Kind of redirecting your attention. And obviously at the beginning when we start doing that, it's hard. We don't trust it. We don't believe it. The way I call it, there is this muscle that we haven't been using, like what I called an idea generation muscle, right? There is also the rest muscle that we're not using. Like taking a break for 5 minutes, we're like, I don't have time. I'm like, can you find 5 minutes? There is all sorts of productivity examples, like when you say you don't have time for X, but in reality, you are choosing to do something else versus what you say is important. When people tell me, when they come to me for my travel strategy sessions, they're like, I wish I had more time. I'm like, let me show you. Let me show you actually what you have and what you're usually leaving on the table and you're kind of forgetting about it. Let me show you how you can be more creative about it. But also, do you really want to travel more? Is that something you would prioritize? Because every time you say yes to someone else asking for your time, you're saying no to your time.
No to yourself, yeah.
You're saying no to the things you want to do. When I ask mothers, I'm like, how far along are you on your to-do list? You know what I hear a lot of times? I'm not on my to-do list. I don't even make it to my to-do list. Like me as a person, anything that relates to me is not important enough. The dishes are important enough. And I might sound condescending, I've had people tell me that's like, dishes aren't. I'm like, I'm not saying dishes are not important. Or whatever it is, whatever the dishes constitute for you, right? But I'm not saying the dishes are not important. I'm just saying, why do you come last if you come at all? Why don't you start with yourself? I was on a Clubhouse the other day, and one lady, she was like, when I become grumpy, I can be like, oh my God, my kid doesn't listen to me, my husband doesn't listen to me. And then I'm like, wait, but did I do things for myself first so I am grounded, so that I can take care of myself and react differently? Because for a lot of us, we don't even remember what it means to take care of ourselves, what it is that brings us joy. What brings you joy, Beth? Tell me. Can you name 3 things that brings you joy?
3 things? Yes, I can actually.
Okay.
I love spending time with my family.
Good.
I like listening to music, just random. Dancing goes along with that normally. Awesome. And I like being outside in nature.
Okay. How often do you do all of those things?
So sometimes the nature thing might not happen. But I've been forcing myself lately to take breaks from work and just go outside, take a walk. My husband looks at me kind of weird sometimes, like, where are you going? Just walking in the cul-de-sac, walking,
Yes,
just
walking.
getting
Yes,
out.
he doesn't need to understand that. He
No,
just doesn't
yeah.
need. You're not making him walk, right? When you're making
Right.
him walk, he can question why you're doing it. If
Exactly.
you're not
Just
making him walk, just like, you're welcome to come if you want to, right? If you want
right.
him to, but sometimes you don't even want him to, and he still invites himself along, and you're like, yeah, and then you're like, oh, that thing, I don't know how to say no. Okay, we'll talk about that in a different story. But in reality, it's like, so many people would be stuck at this question, and I'm glad that you have those three things, right? And it all starts with realizing, what can I do? Because we can all find 1 minute of our time, or 2 minutes of our time, or 5 minutes in a day. Someone said recently, they were like, what if you had, I think it's like $84,600 every day? Like, that would be like your waking account. You could spend it during the day, or you can waste it, because it doesn't, like in the morning you get just another 8400,000, right? Like, what would you do with that money? Most people would kind of like be not ready to spend it. In reality, every day we get 8400,000 seconds to use in our life, or minutes. I don't remember whether it's minutes or seconds, but the point is, like, we get this chunk of time that we give to other people intentionally, in a way, because we are intentionally doing it, whether we decided it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or just now. We are intentionally doing it. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, what the fuck did I just do with my day? And so we can also sit and wallow and be like, oh my God, I've been so bad to myself for the last 10 years, 15, 20, whatever the life is. Or we can take a different approach and start, tomorrow is a new day, or right now is the next moment in my life that I can change how I'm thinking about it. Because again, it's kind of that survivor's guilt reality. It's like, we can't sit in that guilt and be like, oh my God, this situation, whatever the situation is, whatever the circumstances, like, even if you were made a victim of something, right? I don't want to go into brutal, but like home abuse, anything. I'm not saying you are in the wrong for being the victim. No. But when you're out of that environment, when you're already kind of in the safe space, if you continue being the victim intentionally, if you continue being like, well, what could I do? Yes, you couldn't do anything. That is the fact. But going forward, you have a choice. You are already out. So what can you do differently now? How can you think differently about things now that you're realizing that that's what you've been doing to yourself? Like, we make ourselves prisoners. For almost a year, I was making excuses for myself why I should stay in my job. I was like, well, I need insurance for my family. Oh, I need this, or I cannot do that. I haven't done my business in a long, like, ever. I'm not bringing in the same amount. Like, I've been doing my job for 13 years. Of course, I'm not bringing in business if I'm spending like 2 hours maybe every day when I'm tired at 8 p.m. Of course, I'm coming up differently. But people around you, they're like, you're living such a good job. I'm like, yeah, it's a good job, girl. Like, it's a 6-figure job. I'm not hiding from it, right? Like, I've been really good. I'm good. But I also build myself some financial security with that job, to allow me to take time off, to unplug, to allow me to start betting on myself, Like, why am I fitting my life in someone else's goals? That's how I see this right now. The corporate job for me, I'm not bashing anyone's corporate jobs, right? Like, if you love what you do and it drives you, it's awesome. I was there, I was enjoying it. Then I stopped. That's fine. We all change. But like, the way I see it, corporate jobs are not sustainable unless you're creating that environment for yourself. The big corporations, they're more about, like, obviously productivity and getting more money done, right? But they don't care about you as a person. If we die tomorrow, they will replace us the next day, if not the same day. No one cares. Kind of going back to the early thing. No one really cares what's happening. Like, yes, they would care. Yes, they would give you some bereavement time. Yes, they would give you some money to your family. Like, really, will that money be enough for your family to lose you? Will you feel like you have enjoyed your time before you died, will your children remember you being with them, and maybe not with them, but like enjoying life,
right,
being alive? Or will they remember that their mom, dad, parent, caregiver, anyone was just running around nutty, not being able to be anywhere, and not really be,
right.
and being like super torn into pieces and tired all the freaking time? Because like when you're tired, you're being like, oh my God, I'm not spending enough time with my kid. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm like, someone suggested a novel idea. They're like, when you have 5 parties happening on 4th of July, and they're all really good friends, do you really have to go into each one of them? Do you really?
Never.
Like, right, but that's how we feel about family obligations sometimes, right? Like we're like, you have like 5 weddings, maybe back to back, and you're like, but I cannot say no. Like, yes, you can, or you can limit how much you are there, right? You can come in maybe for 15 minutes and then see how it feels and maybe go to the next one, or get creative and be like, why don't you people do it together? And maybe like that will kill a couple of stones, especially when they're in the same area, right? Like, why do you need to eat 5 turkeys on Thanksgiving, right? If you have like 5 Friendsgiving, you can make one big Friendsgiving and have everyone eat those 5 turkeys, right? So we are not really trying most of the time to leave. It's much less scary to just go with the flow, have the river just like drag us, and then get to retirement. If we're lucky, we get to retirement. And I was talking to a health professional the other day. She's like, she is my client. She's like, I see all these patients who get to this like magical retirement place where you're like finally worked your ass off for 40 years, right? You finally get to retirement, you have this money, and then you realize your health is not there. And then you realize you're like, whatever, like, sure, you have the money, you have the time now. You know how it is. It's always something has to give. There's always, when you say yes, you say no. When you say no, you say yes. When you say yes to making more money and taking a break later, you're saying no to yourself right now.
Right, exactly.
Right now. Like, what is your guarantee? Do you have a written note from God that says you're going to get to that retirement, girl? Or do you really know that? No, we don't. My boss died unexpectedly in January. Like, seriously, this first quarter was shut like for me. My boss just died unexpectedly after, like, I talked to him on Wednesday evening about goals, about a great bonus that I just got, about all the things. And then next morning, my boss's boss comes to a team meeting and tells us that our boss just passed completely out of the blue. He was like 50. He did not get to retirement. We were talking about estate plans. We were talking how maybe I should wait until next year. I'm like, what next year? Who has given me the note that says that I have until next year?
Right.
No one knows. And so that was like another jolt for me. But then the war started, and I had to like again create excuses for me to keep staying in the job that wasn't making me happy. And I was glad that I was able to kind of coast by. I'm like productive like that. No one, like, I'm not trying to, like, when I'm not trying to jump over my head, obviously people notice that I don't. But it also doesn't affect that, oh, you're doing fine. Like, no one would fire me for not doing my job because I'm really doing my job. I'm just not like trying to overachieve the overachievers, because this is just, when you get a group of overachievers and everyone's trying to overachieve to get to the next level, it becomes really hard to get noticed. It becomes really hard to get kind of pat on the back. Like, you get a pat on the back, but it's not really, oh my God, you're amazing, you know?
Right.
Like, and we need that. And yes, it's external validation. And yes, it happens. And yes, we're just primed for that. I'm primed for that. I need someone to be recognizing the awesomeness that is Anastasiya.
Right.
And I haven't been getting that. And so while I haven't been getting that, I was looking for other ways. And then I found that, oh, look, I can build a business. So how about I just get the hell out and start building my business? My husband was like, but how are we gonna? I'm like, dude, we'll be fine. I'm a risk manager. Do you think I'm just, have you met me? Like, have you met me? We've been married for 8 years. So have you met me go to Vegas and like blow off a 20,000K bonus? No.
Right.
Well, did we go to Antarctica? Yes, but it was also a trip of a lifetime, of one of the lifetimes, right? And we still didn't blow 20,000 on it. But like, I don't do stupid decisions like that. Like, I can do something as coloring my hair green. Yes, but it's also like a 37-year-old weighted decision of, okay, it's my hair, it's going to grow. If no, I can color it into my own color and no one will notice that I did that to my hair.
Right.
In a way, it's like, it's my hair, but like, I don't do like, I put risk management everywhere. In a way, it's like, I think about things and I have enough education to do that, to understand how this world works and what I need to think about. But even then, I was talking to one of my coaches and she's like, what is stopping you? I'm like, well, this whole, like, I don't know if I'll be able to support the medical insurance, because I'm the corporate wife. I have the umbrella for the family, right? She's like, so how much money would it be? And I actually had my husband give me a number that would be like approximation of how much money we would need for medical insurance specifically per month.
Okay.
Outside of corporate, right? He gave me the number. She's like, so how much would it be with all the expenses? Do you have that amount? So it came, let's say, to 100,000, right? I'm just making it. But like, she's like, do you have that in your bank account? That's like not, is it available to you? I'm like, yes. She's like, so what are we talking about? So you can support yourself and your family with the medical insurance for the next 12 months, considering that you bring zero money at all. So what? Why is this? And I was like, oh. She's like, so are we talking here now about like you not wanting to look at your money? Is this a different story? This has nothing to do with medical insurance. This is you being scared of your own abundance and your own gift and in a way, it is scary. What if I become successful, right? What happens to the people who know me? People already look at me weird. I have green hair, But it's like, we tell ourselves these stories and we need help figuring them out, whether they are about our eating habits, our rest routines, our careers. What we're told that we as girls should not be like proactive because we're pushy. And yes, I am pushy. I am very pushy. I'm bold because that's how I am. I've been told I'm not a team player because of that. Because once in a corporate setting, I questioned the management decision to reshuffle people in a office setting. They were like, Anastasiya is not a team player. I'm like, because I asked a question that you didn't discuss with the whole people that are being shuffled around. They're like, you could have done it silently, like from the back, I'm like, but it was a question that concerned everyone in this room, but everyone was too scared to, like, I speak up on things that people are scared to speak about because at some point, I guess I stopped caring that people would be appalled at what I say, because when people ask me, when am I going to get my next baby? I kind of try to find a way to gently tell them to fuck off. And the same way was like, oh, you are such a great ex. I'm like, okay, whatever it is that, like, are you a specialist? And at the same time, when I was pregnant, people who have nothing to do with my nutrition, my OBGYN situation, would tell me how I'm not allowed to drink sangria and they're hoping it's non-alcoholic. I was like,
oh, wow.
I'm like, you're an internal auditor, which is what I kind of do. I'm like, when did you get a nutrition, degree that I missed? Can you show it to me when you're like invited into a conversation on my practices, on what I do to my body? There was a happy hour that I showed up to. Every other person looked into my glass. They're like, oh, what are you drinking? I'm like, it's a fruit juice. Oh, it's a fruit salad.
Wow.
Well, you know what a sangria is. It's a fruit salad for anyone out there. It's a fruit salad with fermented fruit juice. Drink it to your heart's desire if that's what you want. Your baby will be fine.
Oh, goodness. Fruit salad.
So
yes,
we can go on for days, Yvette. Seriously, you need to shut me down.
Well, let me just say, I needed the word that you brought today. I wasn't going to stop you because
thank you.
The stuff that you were saying about about putting yourself on the to-do list, and that our days are numbered. We don't know when. So why wait? Go ahead. Those were the things that I needed to hear. Those were the things that I've been fighting with in my own mind. And it's like, I know that I've got stuff in me that I want to do, that it's there, it's waiting, it's ready. And for some reason I won't jump. And just hearing
you want
that,
some hot seat coaching,
and
for the second episode.
I feel like that's what I need, because it's like, I don't know, like how you described yourself as a teenager. I was that safe kid too, that, what it was that I thought everybody needed and wanted from me, that's who I was. And as an adult, I did the things. I took gymnastics lessons. I was on a dance team, everything as an adult, all the things that I wanted to do, but was afraid to do it before. And so I'm hearing you tell this story, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I know exactly what she's talking about. So when you got to that part that I haven't got to yet, it was like, I got to sit and listen. There's a reason why we're talking, because I need to hear this. So
yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I you know what, I am still that safe teenager, because even now I'm still releasing the weight from my own shoulders that I put it there myself, on having to take care of everyone. Like having my parents here, I'm like, oh my God, they don't have a job, they don't have the paperwork, they don't have the language, so I am fully responsible. So how can I leave my day job? I need to be taking care of my parents. And I realized, okay, it's not that much money, and I can figure it out too. But like, I'm trying to fix my brother. I'm trying to like kind of fix, and fix is the wrong word, but in a way it is the word that comes to me all the time, is that I'm, that joke, like everyone in your family needs to go to therapy, but you're the only one doing it. And then you're in therapy for everyone in your family, because everyone's like, but we grew up fine. We grew up like that. Look how fine I'm like, so you call all of that fine, right? All of this that we have in our lives, you call it fine because you don't think you're crazy, because only crazy people go to therapy. No, everyone right now, everyone needs to go to therapy. I'm joking, like I'm creating a fund, not for my daughter's education, but for my daughter's
for her mental health. Yes,
for her mental health. So it's not kind of a stigma. There shouldn't be a stigma. My brother is suffering with depression. He doesn't want to work through that. He doesn't want to deal with that. When I suggest talking to a therapist, he's like, I'll do it myself. I'm like, dude, it's been 2 years of you telling us how physically ill you are to even get up from the bed.
Oh, wow.
And when the war started, he was energized, he was engaged, he was all the things. And now he's again telling my mom how he's like kind of depressed. Because like that external reasoning, it stopped. Like right now, not every place in Ukraine, or the majority of places in Ukraine, is relatively safe. It's not under the threat of bombing. I mean, everything is, but it's not being actively bombed, right? It's not getting actively like shot at. And so people are getting back to normal, to whatever that normal is, right? Like going to the point of going to markets, and the farmers markets are back to the full scale of things. But it's like when your why is external, when your why of why you want to do this thing, why you're thinking you need to do this thing or you don't need to do a thing, when it's external, when it's coming from someone else, it's not going to drive you. It's not going to drive you to get healthier. It's not going to drive you to get happier. You will always be looking to that next green grass patch, sunshine day, something to get happier, to find the reason to wear the best necklace, because maybe someday, like I gave my mom this kind of awesome shawl and she wasn't wearing it. And I'm like, why aren't you wearing it? She's like, well, we're just going on a trip. I'm like, that's exactly what this shawl is about. It's warm. And like, she's like, well, what if it gets dirty? I'm like, well, it gets dirty. You wash it. It's a thing. It's a thing, When my daughter gets dirty, my mom's like, oh, I'm like, yes, there is water. We can wash her face. Like she once took a Sharpie. Girl, she made her face with a Sharpie, like she had beard and with a black Sharpie. My husband was like, oh, is this permanent? I'm like, kinda, but let's wash it off. We washed off a freaking Sharpie. Yes, it was in the first 30 minutes, but my 3-year-old
Right.
painted her face and her arms because she was reading a book called Sulve. I don't know if you've read that book. It's about, I think it's by Lupita, what's her last name? It's called Sulve. It's Sulwe. It's a book about this beautiful black-skinned girl who is like black as midnight, and her whole family is kind of lighter colors.
Oh, wow.
And she's trying to get lighter. And so my daughter, she's white. My daughter is like blonde, blue-eyed, white girl. You know, she's gonna be that. Oh my God! As soon as she like pouts her lip, everything's gonna
Everybody,
fly.
yeah.
Seriously, and she already knows it. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
But she
wow.
was coloring her face and her arms so she can be like Sulve.
Oh, wow.
Because Sulwe was trying to get whiter, so my little one was trying to go the other way. I was like, baby, we'll figure that part out. I appreciate you trying, you know, but like maybe not with a Sharpie, you know.
Not with, yeah. Oh,
maybe not
wow.
with a Sharpie, but it was a sharp, and her. I was like, but yeah, it's fine. Like she will survive that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Sharpie, it goes off, you know, like even tattoos wash off. If you don't renew the tattoo, your body actually, at some point, you know how the whole body cells and the blood, it rejuvenates.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is a 7-year cycle or something year cycle. And so the tattoos fade out.
Right.
Unless you renew them, everything fades out on your body. Like maybe your tooth won't grow out, but the rest of the things, it actually, well, okay, maybe lungs and like the organs don't gray out, but like your blood, your skin, your hair, right?
Yeah,
even your nails, they all grow again. And so when we are waiting for that moment, when we're in the when I get there situation, it never, like, whenever you get there, you're never happy with this. You're never celebrating it because you're like, you forget that that was something you were looking to forward from yesterday or from the other day. And that's why people can bash like gratitude journals and some reminders. Like I like Facebook for one thing, the reminders that it gives you from like years ago where you were. Like we have this thing with my husband. I'm like, remember where we were in 2017? He's like, where were we? And because we travel all the time, but like, where were we in this particular moment? And kind of remembering like how we went camping and we didn't have an axe for wood, and he has no idea what to do with an axe. So when we finally found one at the neighbor's camp, they had an entertainment girl because they were like, okay, this is fun, because he was like trying it and trying, nothing was working, but he was at it. And I have this picture where he's like just staring, and somehow we got the fire going. I don't know. But the campers who gave us the axe had the best. They had first row seat to world-class comedy show.
I bet they
did. That's called a guy with an axe who had no idea what to do with the thing. So now we're going camping this weekend, actually tomorrow, with my 3-year-old. First time. We're bringing my dad, who knows what to do with an axe. Yay! Because we still don't. We are still those people. We like car camping, when you can put a mattress and a tent and sleeping bags in your car. You drive to a destination, even if you fly to a destination and then still pack a car. Like I don't do backpacking. I was thinking there's this road that's called Santiago de Compostela route. It's in Spain and Portugal. It's like this gorgeous road, but it's kind of a backpacker's dream. Like it's a long road. You can take like months and months of summer or something going in. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that someday with my daughter. But in reality, I would just enjoy the experience, but not for the rush of, oh, let me carry all the crap on my back.
Right.
Like, I don't like that. My daughter right now is in phase where she likes carrying her own purse. And I'm in my phase where I'm trying to get rid of as much stuff as I can carrying it, right? My mom is like, let me help her. I'm like, no. Let her figure it out. Right now, she decides to take the purse and to stuff it with the stuff that she has in it. And when she's trying to give it to me when she started, I'm like, no. You picked up the purse. You're carrying this purse. Then you get to decide tomorrow to not bring the purse.
Right.
Today, you're carrying the purse. So when I'm giving a present of a carry-on for my little, I'm like, no, I don't need a carry-on because I have as many hands. If she's not going to use that carry-on right now, she can do a backpack. Yes, she can do a backpack. Like she enjoys the backpack. So give her a backpack, because grandma was like, I can't just give her one backpack. I'm like, yes, you can just give her a backpack and stop. I have a ban on buying things. in my house, in the household for grandmas. They're like, oh my God, we're not allowed to buy. I'm like, you buy stuff all the time. I have no limit on whatever you do with your house and what toys you show up in your house when she goes there. I'm like, just don't bring more things.
Don't bring it here. Exactly.
No. So there is so much to do, so much to talk, and we can definitely continue the conversation.
Yes.
Online or offline.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm actually going to split this up into
5.
I probably
do whatever you feel like doing.
It's going to be more than one episode. Okay, I can guarantee you that it's more than one episode.
I'm game with it.
So, but thank you so much for joining me and taking the time out of your schedule to go over all of this.
I loved when people want to hear me talk, I've been getting stuck in my career and people will be like, you need to become a thought leader. I'm like, a thought leader. Let me go be a thought leader where I'm actually a thought leader already. And I don't need to become one. I just need people to know that I am. Because I am a thought leader in travel. I am a crazy thought leader in rest and self-care for specifically mothers, but anyone. Because I want to leave you with this. We all deserve rest. You, Yvette, say with me, I, Yvette, deserve rest.
Deserve rest.
There you go. So we all deserve rest. It's a good thing that our kids need to see that there is a different way of doing things in life, that there is a different way of operating. Because will you get more productive out of it? Sure, because you'll value your own time more. Will you get better at your business? Yes, because you'll show up differently. You'll be rested and you'll have energy to share. That's a different energy than when you're like, oh, let me write that another article or something. And it's coming out of a place of scarcity and fear and tiredness and hating the world for whatever it is, because we decide what it is. Yes, there are external circumstances we cannot do anything about actual circumstances, but we can decide how we feel. We can decide what we think about. We can decide what we focus on. Because I don't know, one of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption, and there is the guy when he sees and he's like, what got you through solitude, right? When he was in like the solitary, it's the remembering the opera music, right?
Yes.
So he could focus on how horrible all of this is, or he focused on the opera. He had it in his head and it was singing, and I know you love to sing. So focusing on something that brings you joy, that brings you a smile, is a good thing, even in the worst moments, even when the world is falling apart. And not looking at every piece of negative news is a good thing. You need that. Your brain needs a break.
Right.
We need a break. There is a good resource if anyone's not following. It's called the Nap Ministry. I hope you know about
the
it.
Nap Ministry. No, never heard of it. But I sound like a follower already because I love naps.
You need that. Like the Nap Ministry is a great resource. But follow me, read me, work with me. I'm available for coaching. I'm available for strategy sessions, whether travel or kind of how to get out of your rut right now. It doesn't have to be a rut. It can be just hand folding and hugs. And there is accountability. It's big to help you build new habits. And anyone can do it if they're ready to recognize that they are going to do the work. It's not going to happen just by me being here and being like, Yvette, I have a magic wand. I have a magic cape, but I also have a magic wand. But me waving a magic wand, like, it might bless you. Yes, it will bless you. It will bless your day. It will bless all the things. But you know how when you come back from vacation to your regular routine and you dread that moment, right? So that's how life is when we don't do anything intentionally to change that. It drags us back into the same mud. It can be the most perfect vacation that I planned for you that you didn't have to do yourself. But when you come back and you are still saying yes to everyone but yourself, it's going to be terrible. You're going to hate every moment of that. And you're going to you might be blaming other people and the society. So we all deserve rest. We all deserve to be living our life. I thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you listening to me tell my big story. I'm gonna like have my VA type it up and put a like, and I think I have a book out probably by June next year. I'll have a book, I'll have a TEDx talk and all
All
the things.
right.
Yes, well, the
Yes.
TEDx talk is definitely a thing. I don't know about the book. The book is like, well, when you told me about one line, I was like, okay, my life is not a one line. My life needs like days and days of conversation. Thank you so much, Yvette. I really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for listening. I apologize if I wasn't looking at you all the time because my eyes just go everywhere. But thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful summer. It's the time to say yes to yourself. It's the time to say yes to the things that bring you joy. And if you need some more support, check out rest.coach, and Yvette will have some more links for you too. Thank you, Yvette.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much.